I told him to get the out of my house. Because there's a line you don't cross.
I understand that if you go over time or over budget, your personality just changes. You have said
I
before.
would disagree with that. Because basically we're always over schedule and over budget.
When you're doing something, though, for the first time that's never been done before,
Which
it's
is
tough
everything
to
I've ever done.
figure out a budget for that. You have said, how about the toughest conversation you've ever had to have with a financier?
I think probably the toughest ones were on Titanic because there was so much momentum and there was this giant set and there was no way we were not going to go forward. The only way out was through, but the costs were spiraling at a rate so fast that if I stopped production that day, a third of the way into the shoot, I'd still end up over budget. So it's like, how do you direct in that scenario? How does this creative decision I make during the day that? So there's a fatalism that can come in, into the process at that point. And my interpretation is, all right, well, we're screwed. The only way out of this is to do something good. In my mind, you double down on the artistic principles of what you're there to do, the story you're there to tell.
But I want to kind of hone in on that with the Titanic. Why did you decide to forfeit all your fees?
I offered that to the studio on a quid pro quo basis with them not doing stupid things to chop out scenes that were critical to the film. At that point, I would rather have had a film that made sense and represented what I imagined it should be than get paid. We reached a point where we had shot most of the film except the sinking. You kind of have to sink the Titanic. I didn't want them to do something stupid and we're going to dissolve and the ship's gone. I mean, that's an extreme case. But, they were talking about some pretty draconian cuts. And, the thing I wanted to impress upon them was that it wasn't an intentional architecture for me to get them pregnant and then spend all the money in the coffers. It was an honest series of decisions that were to make a great movie that wound up spiraling out of control in terms of physical costs. Things like we grossly underestimated what it would take to light a set that was 700 feet long and 10 stories high. Like the Musco light, the tallest light in Hollywood, would not reach above the deck. So then I came up with this idea that we'll build a track and we'll put a big construction crane on it and we'll hang a big ass light out on the crane and we can move it up and down the ship and position it. And that's ultimately what we did, but that wasn't in the budget, and it was one sort of, one battle after another.
What are you thinking when the studio then comes back to you and asks for points on your next films too?
I told them to get the out of my house. Because there's a line you don't cross. There's a line of respect you don't cross. They saw what I was up against. They get the production reports. They know I'm trying to do my best to make a film so that we can all make some money. The problem was their perspective on it was that they didn't believe the film would make any money.
It was reported that you were miserable at the time and convinced you
had
ruined your career.
Actually. I was having a great time creatively. I was miserable around.
Wait, didn't you keep a razor blade on your desk?
That's a joke. It was there because I got a chuckle out of it. But it was also a good reminder. The razor blade had a sign on it that said, use in case film sucks, meaning do your best every day, every minute when you're sitting there, try to make a good movie. Because that was the only thing we had to cling to at that point. Was I unhappy? Was I miserable? No, I don't think so. I got to make this amazing film. The issue was that I did buy into the studio perspective that we wouldn't make any money, that we were basically doomed.
You did?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think anybody believed in the movie. I believed in the movie. I believed in it internally in terms of its power, much more so than the studio did. But I also sort of bought into the rationale that you couldn't make money off a 3-hour period movie. At the level that we had spent, because we'd gone from $120 million budget to a $200 million end accounting over basically a 1-year period.
after the numbers started coming in, is there a conversation that's most memorable to you that stands out between you and the studio?
I don't think we talked about it very much because the only thing I had to say was that. And I think they knew it. No, first of all, that's a joke. Secondly, we were all of a sudden best friends again. Because in success, all things are forgiven and all things are forgotten. It was kind of crazy because the movie opened to X, which was, $28 million. And then it went up the next weekend, which was a holiday weekend, Christmas, went up to $35 million. I was like, what? That's not possible. Movies don't do that. Then it sustained, it plateaued, and it was like ka-ching, 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 weekend after weekend, 25 million, 25 million, 25 million, 25 million, times 16. It was number one for 16 weeks. I don't think that it had never been done before. I doubt if it'll, where the theatrical market is going now. I don't care how brilliant and wonderful a movie is. I don't think that'll ever happen again. And it was like watching something levitate. And it was like a miracle. And everybody was just too happy for all the recrimination, So what did I do next? I promptly did not do another movie for 7 years. It's like, I don't want to go through that again. Are you kidding me? I want to do stuff that, when I go into the ocean with a piece of technology, it's not some random opinion of some reviewer someplace, whether that thing works or not. I want to play by rules that I understand, not capricious rules of, criticism, opinion, awards. I mean, we came out of the awards great that time, but I also know what it would have felt like to not, until they actually say your name, you assume you're going to lose, basically. And it's like, I never want to go through that again. Of course, I wound up going through it again with Avatar, but I had some perspective on it by then.